Business Roundtable. My name is Mariela Osario, and I am the Career and Small Business Services Assistant at the Long Branch Public Library. Again, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. We are fortunate to host a conversation entitled COVID, What's Next? How will New Jersey businesses survive a second wave? With important leaders from across the small business spectrum. Now, our roundtable is actually an offshoot of our Back to Business program. And for those of you not familiar with the Back to Business, it was launched back in May 1st of this year as a response to the pandemic. And its aim is to strengthen small businesses and startups by offering a comprehensive set of tools and resources to assist with the expansion of an online presence in order for businesses to sustain their business or to assist startup new businesses with their new enterprise. Now, before I begin, I do want to let everyone know that this conversation is being recorded for those who were unable to attend and for future archive. I would also like to ask the audience to please mute your microphones. You will find the icon at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. After the discussion, the panelists will be more than happy to answer any questions the audience may have. We only ask that you please hold off all inquiries until after the discussion. By most accounts, New Jerseyans did what was necessary to suppress the COVID-19 outbreak. We stayed home, we wore masks, we observed social distancing rules. But the restrictions imposed on businesses really brought about an economic instability and calamity. And now that the state has slowly reopened, businesses are still facing countless challenges. Today, we're going to discuss what happened, where we are, and where we go from here. Joining me today are 6 experts well-positioned to analyze the situation and help figure out what the future might hold. Also with us are 2 local business owners who will share with us how they were able to manage their business during the pandemic. All right, bear with me. One moment. One moment, please. Here we go. Oops, sorry. Bear with me while there we go. Okay, so representing the city of Long Branch, we have Mayor John Pallone. We also have Jacob Jones, the Director of the Office of Community and Economic Development, and Roberto Ferragino, Assistant Director of the Community and Economic Development, as well as the President of the Long Branch Public Library Board of Trustees. Also with us is Michael Diamond, business reporter for the Asbury Park Press. Michael has been writing about the New Jersey economy for 20 years. His stories have appeared in USA Today and dozens of other newspapers and websites nationwide. Elizabeth Diamond is the head of marketing for new direct-to-consumer pet wellness and insurance company, Pumpkin Pet Insurance. The brand is revolutionizing the animal healthcare industry by providing straightforward, thorough pet health insurance and an optional preventative care plan, enabling the best care for pet owners and veterinarians. Elizabeth also has over 20 years of major marketing experience, having worked at household name brands like American Express, Barnes & Noble, Sleepy's, and ClassPass. Throughout her career, she's developed an expertise in growing and scaling businesses at both Fortune 500 companies and startups. Tej Mehta is co-founder and co-president of Main Street Relief, a nonprofit helping small businesses respond to and recover from economic crises like COVID-19. He is also an experienced business strategy consultant at Deloitte and has supported companies across the US and Europe solve their most complex problems. In addition, as an immigrant from India, Tej is deeply invested in supporting immigrants and refugees succeed and serves on the Leadership Council of Upwardly Global and advises other nonprofit organizations who work in this space. I would also like to mention that Main Street Relief is a partner with our library's Back to Business program. April Centrone is the owner of 10 Pearl, an art center located in Long Branch. She initially reached out to the Long Branch Public Library after hearing about our Back to Business initiative. April is a multi-instrumentalist, teacher, and music therapist. She is the co-founder and lead percussionist of nonprofit, the New York Arabic Orchestra, and has performed in venues such as Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, and the United Nations. April has also worked extensively with inner city youth via programs such as Yo-Yo Ma's Silk Road Connect. April currently teaches at William Patterson University and teaches private percussion classes and workshops for women, children, and mixed groups. And we also have Barbara Hoffman-Gaffey, owner-director of Hoffman's Funeral Home, born and raised in Long Branch. Barbara became a licensed practical nurse and worked in the field of nursing for several years. Barbara then decided she would like to follow in her father's footsteps and join him in working at the funeral home, becoming a licensed funeral director in 1987. Barbara is active in the community and is a board member of the Greater Long Branch Chamber of Commerce. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Mayor Pallone, we are so excited that you've been able to join us in today's discussion that I would like to begin with you, if I may.
Sure.
Okay. Mayor, can you outline the principles that guided you through the health crisis and how those principles centered on the safety and well-being of our community and its employees?
Sure, Mariella, thank you for having me. And before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you to you and the library for hosting this event, for the panelists who are on the call, and obviously to our business community for having this discussion. This has been, a very difficult time, obviously, for all of us, and especially for our business community. And it's been our goal from the start of this, actually, to be there to help and support our businesses. So I look forward to the conversation. And again, thank you. Marielle, and to everybody, so our main concern, we had three basic concerns when this all started. The first, of course, is safety of our residents, our businesses, and our employees. The second was that, this was sort of new territory for all of us. So we knew that we needed, safety was first, and then we needed to communicate with our residents because we knew that they were going to, reach out to us. And finally, we knew that we needed to be proactive with this, again, because it was new territory. So as all of us, we've had a lot of challenges during this pandemic, but on the flip side, we also knew that we had a lot of resources. So I wanted to talk about our resources first. Almost from the very beginning of the pandemic, we got together with a daily meeting with myself, our business administrator, emergency management, police department, health department, and we meet, and we still meet twice a week. We were meeting daily, and then after that, we also had a weekly meeting with some of the other agencies in town, the hospital, the Board of Ed, Housing Authority, and others. And, it was very important that we just, we're all on the same page and communicate with each other. We also have a very diverse council. As you know, Long Branch is a very diverse community in terms of its residents and in terms of its businesses. And we have a very diverse council from different parts of town. So they were also active in all our decision making. One of the things that Long Branch is unique in is that we were one of the few communities in Monmouth County that has its own health department. And that was always very helpful from the very beginning in terms of this COVID, in terms of contact tracing, in terms of conversations with the hospital and just staying on top of actually what was happening. As I mentioned, we also have emergency management. And another point, when we have some of the representatives here, we had, we have our own Office of Economic and Community Development, and we knew that very quickly we would have to get involved with them. We also had a lot of challenges. So for example, that diverse community, we had a very different economic population. There were a lot of people that needed assistance with food and rent. So that was one issue. And the other issue, specifically to the business community, is that we are, we're a city that thrives on the summer as a summer resort. So a lot of the economy, the engine for that, happens in the summer. And so it was, unfortunately, the worst time for this to happen. Usually in April, we get started with our beach operation. A lot of the businesses starting gearing up and so forth. So to mitigate some of these challenges, we made a conscious effort to communicate with our community, especially in different languages. In terms of helping those in need, we coordinated with Fulfill and some of the food pantries here in town to make that work. And then we also we got involved with community development because people weren't getting their stimulus checks. A lot of the business community needed to know about loans and grants and so forth. So we figured we would like to see if there was like a one-stop phone call or office that people could call to find out this information, because it was very difficult to come by. So again, our Jake and Rob are here. We're very helpful with that. We also got together with the Chamber of Commerce, and we initially did a business survey to try to see what was happening within the business community and what their needs were and so forth. So that's kind of how this all just got started.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to direct the following question to Jacob and Robert. An analysis of the Payment Protection Program by Reveal from the Center for Investigative Reporting found that New Jersey and New York, the two states hit hardest by the pandemic, ranked nearly last in terms of the percentage of all businesses, which was 18%, that got an award from the first round of the government's main small business assistance program. Only California and Nevada have smaller proportions, 15 and 17% respectively. Now, putting politics aside, and for whatever the reason, the Reveal analysis shows that the 33,519 New Jersey businesses that got a 1% loan of up to 10 million represent just 18% of the total number of businesses in the state as measured by the US Census Bureau. The average award to a New Jersey business lucky enough to obtain assistance was approximately $284,000 in the first round. Several of the state's congressional representatives complained about the problems with the program, preventing truly needy small businesses in New Jersey from getting the relief. How will things be different with phase 2 of the 10 million grant received from the U.S. Economic Development Administration's CARES Act appropriation?
Rob, I'll go first. Well, as you know, there is a second round coming, and it's targeted for those businesses that were omitted in that first cycle. I just want to comment that this office also is receiving CARES Act monies in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We've yet to receive that funding, and we've also been awarded a second round. First cycle was $285,000 and some change. The second award is about $347,000 and some change. We hope that when these guidelines are received, that we'll be able to render many of the local businesses some relief. I just want to comment, though, on some things that businesses can be mindful of, understanding the lesson that we've learned from this first wave. And that is that businesses should come up with a continuity plan. If you foresee anything hindering your ability to operate, a continuity plan is advisable. You also want to try to maintain customer service. This way you'll have a base of patronage that you can rely on when you are back up and running. You also want to do some workforce pivoting. This we've all had to do because the pandemic changed the way we all operate. You also want to check your insurance coverage. Some of this might be covered by insurance, some of it will not be. So businesses, check your insurance coverage. Make sure you can weather the storm, so to speak, if there is a second wave, and you need to check your policies just to make sure you might be able to get through the first wave. You might also want to check on banking accessibility, cybersecurity. All these things are very, very important. Natural disasters, as we know, can also affect your operations. So businesses have to be on guard. The good news is that there is more money's coming. And the county right now is offering, again, up to $10,000 for businesses that have been impacted by the COVID-19. Please make application to the county. We do have that information. I have a phone number, and also there's also training, free training that's provided to businesses by the Small Business Development Center at Brookdale. So there are resources that can be had. Businesses just need to be on top of the information.
Thank you, Jacob. Rob, small businesses grew more pessimistic as the pandemic dragged on. According to a recent New York Times article, about 1/3 of small businesses surveyed by the Census Bureau in late April said that they expected it to take more than 6 months for businesses to return to normal. Now, almost 5 months later, countless of New Jersey restaurants, bars, retailers, and other small businesses have permanently closed. Undoubtedly, the fall will bring new challenges. Where can small business owners go from here, especially with a possible second wave looming?
Sure. So, and the answer to this would most likely vary from community to community. And in our community in Long Branch, we are fortunate enough that we do have some services and entities that a lot of other smaller communities do not have. For example, as was mentioned a few minutes ago, I believe by the mayor, we do have a health department, and most other municipalities do not. Another entity that we have that's a little bit more robust than most municipalities is our library system. As you had mentioned earlier, I'm the president of the current Board of Trustees library system for Long Branch, and we offer many services and assistance programs that most libraries do not offer. So first and foremost, in our municipality, one of the entities, the library, is an entity by which most businesses should get to know in Long Branch. We would encourage them to get to know it, not just during the pandemic and what services we can offer for COVID, but overall in general, even when there's a time where we do not have COVID or a situation of any type of a natural disaster or unforeseen circumstance. Get to know the library, get to know the services that the library offers. Your office and your position in particular, most libraries don't have that position in place. We have a social worker, a full-time social worker in the library system in Long Branch. Most municipalities do not. So we offer a lot that can assist local businesses. So I would start there. We do have a very close network and working relationship with Brookdale Community College. That's another source that businesses should probably get to know in this municipality. We have a wonderful Chamber of Commerce. Long Branch is very lucky to have a very robust Chamber of Commerce with many local businesses involved in it. That also feeds into communication and access of communication. So Long Branch has a local newspaper. Long Branch has an active chamber, an active Rotary, I believe as well. So if I was a local business in Long Branch, I would recommend that they get in touch with and become familiar with those entities as well. It can be very discouraging in a time such as COVID because it's an unforeseen circumstance, such as a natural disaster that comes. So to tie on to Director Jones's points, there are things that a business should immediately react to in a situation like this in order to be secure with themselves financially and from a stability standpoint. And as Jacob Jones had mentioned, developing a continuity plan. One of the things he also mentioned is customer service. And local businesses, in order to really stay afloat, need to think creatively in a time such as this. You know, there's the CARES Act and things of that nature, which businesses can apply for in hopes to get funding. As we've seen by the numbers that you laid out, it's not always the case that all businesses will receive that funding. So a lot of times the same creativity that led to a business owner to start a business is the same creativity that a business needs to look into when a situation like this occurs. And which has led to a lot of businesses offering curbside service, markers which identify 6 feet in between customers, PPE signage for masks and what have you, really engaging or redeveloping their social media platform and promoting their business and promoting their services, especially if customers cannot enter the actual brick and mortar establishment, outside seating, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think the more a business can have tentacles in its community to different entities and offices and businesses, the better it can be in place for when a situation like this occurs. Hopefully it doesn't, but you always have to be prepared.
Great, thank you, Rob. Now this question is directed towards Michael, Elizabeth, or Tej. Brick and mortar stores who depend on foot traffic have seen sales plunge, and stores that offer services like hair salons can't operate online. And even essential stores that manage to stay open are affected by social distancing requirements. It's inevitable that changes will occur to underlying business models. In industries such as retail, tourism, entertainment, and travel, entirely new business models and practices will begin to form. What skills will need to be updated or sourced differently to match a new reality?
I can jump in and take that. As you guys heard, I'm Elizabeth Diamond. I lead marketing over at Pumpkin Pet Insurance. Someone who's kind of worked in marketing for the last 20 years. Obviously, I'm a huge proponent of marketing as a way to also really revive businesses. So as you kind of think about skills and potentially even having either your own people on hand that may have additional bandwidth, or you yourself as a business owner might have additional time on your hands too. I think it's a fabulous time to, brush up on various digital skills, whether that's learning how to build your own social media community account or experimenting with doing Facebook ads, for example. And there's resources that Facebook specifically has where they're supporting small businesses and giving them free ad credits. There actually are even ways that you can tap into some new channels without having to spend your own money. I think the other piece, and then, I think a lot of people also probably have kids who are in high school and college. Probably your best social media manager is actually your own potentially kid at home who may just be able to take it over for you for free, or looking into offering internship opportunities for high school or college students as well. And I'd say one last thing, as people think about new ways to experiment in their business, is really thinking about how can you, potentially revamp your current model so that it's applicable in today's environment, whether it means changing the way you deliver your services. So like the hair salon example, opportunities to go into people's homes as an alternative to having people come to your salon. So really thinking a lot more out of the box in terms of how you can engage with customers, and certainly looking into how to tap into the digital skills as well.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. Now, what marketing advice can you give to small business owners to combat COVID-19? Tej, or?
Yeah, I think Elizabeth probably already covered a lot of the really excellent marketing tips, and she's the expert here. So I actually wanted to add a couple more points to the other skills that I think might be relevant for small business owners, in addition to marketing and digital communities and digital connections. One, I think, is very much about this new style of working in regards to remote work that we're all going through right now. And with a second wave likely to have to go back into a remote environment for a lot of us, it's likely to happen. I think in that, learning how to effectively manage and build employee communities in remote environments is very important in terms of employee morale and managing through fatigue that everyone is feeling from the isolation that everyone is experiencing right now. So, none of these things are particularly difficult, but they just require intention in terms of how do we think about remote culture. So setting up opportunities or times perhaps where once a week the entire team comes together for an hour, has lunch together over Zoom, even if, and no talking about work. And even if that may seem difficult with lower time constraints, that can just help people feel like, oh, I'm around other people and don't need to just keep my head constantly in working and keeping ourselves surviving. So it's just something to consider in regards to how to manage a remote workforce. I think the other thing here is around the importance of developing a robust financial skill set. Better management of finances can help access grants and loans and also actually manage through them. For example, as many folks might be experiencing right now with the PPP, as we enter the forgiveness portion of the loan, having your finances managed in a systematic way is going to be very important to actually get that forgiveness and have it come through. So becoming a lot more intentional with finances early and becoming clear with how they're managed can be really helpful. And then the last point I want to make here is, there are a lot of skills that everyone needs to learn, a lot of skills that everyone wants to learn, but it's terrifying, it's exhausting, it's overwhelming to think about trying to reskill within a matter of weeks to survive, to help your business survive. There are a lot of organizations out there like Microsoft, for example, who've set up free micro-learning platforms to help small business owners learn and in an iterative and where it doesn't take too much time kind of way. And I highly recommend those. And I also think that this is a great opportunity to access mentorship and support and help from other people in the small business ecosystem who might be able to provide that kind of support. A couple other folks, Rob, you were mentioning the importance of the library ecosystem and how valuable that's been. In addition, I think there are a lot of virtual mentorship opportunities. The organization that we've started, Main Street Relief, is one of those where small business can connect with mentors in an agile way and get a lot of questions answered. But there are many others out there who can really help fill that skills gap in an efficient way where you don't feel like you need to know everything, but how can you kind of take those next steps?
Great, thank you. Thank you, Tej. Michael, one more question. How will New Jersey businesses survive a second wave? I know Tej and Elizabeth gave us some great suggestions, but what critical choices should small business owners make right now?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's kind of a matter of keeping the lights on and operating while you make a transition to a new paradigm. I kept hearing time and again that this was sort of the direction the economy was going all these years. It just sort of accelerated it by a few years even. So people are working from home now. There's more emphasis on, selling e-commerce. We read about Rook Coffee, which is based in Long Branch, and brilliant company, but they didn't have mobile apps. So they quickly pivoted that and were able to sell their product through the mobile app. So like these guys have said, it's you get the benefit of the technology. I imagine if the pandemic hit 10 years ago, we would have been in deep trouble. By the same token, you're sort of missing out on the personal connection and networking that builds morale and makes you more productive and happier at work. So finding those types of ways to keep people engaged. Being isolated, I've been working from home since March, and I was used to the energy and action of the newsroom and the collaboration, and now I'm kind of staring at the wall all day. So how do you, keep your key employees engaged? Another thing that I've seen is like sort of refiguring expenses. Like, what do you really need in this environment as we move forward? Do you need as much office space? Can you save money on rent? Things like that. And I'm really curious to see how, just kind of what the shore looks like when we come out of this. What do offices look like? what do stores look like? So it's just a matter of being flexible to all that.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate it. Now, as everyone knows, running a business is always difficult. But for business owners, 2020 has brought a whole new set of challenges. One thing we know for certain is that people are resilient and their stories need to be heard. And by listening, we can all feel a little bit more connected. I would like to direct this question to our two local business owners, April and Barbara. What is one of the most important decisions you have made for your company this year? April, would you like to start us off?
Sure. My name is April with Film Studios in Long Branch. The most important thing I initially did was research. I spoke with the New Jersey TV and Film Commission, who was in touch with the governor of New Jersey, who gave me excellent information up to date of what we're allowed to do. And that created not only peace of mind for our company, but peace of mind for our clients, including we're allowed to actually function at any occupancy, at full occupancy for productions, and currently 25% occupancy, as we know, for events. And I think what we did initially to, while everyone was closed, was create some excitement over social media. And I think this was reflected by many of the comments here. You have to say, hey, this is coming, or, suggest this and that. And luckily, as essentially a content creating space, we do photo, we do film, we're able to go in and create some interesting pictures, or and go onto our laptops and design some interesting ads. Again, we're talking about Facebook ads, which we all rely on, and got things going for when we were able to absolutely be open, so that our clients were ready to jump in. So that was a big, important move that we made, that actually allowed a good amount of success in the summer, which was shocking and wonderful.
Great. Barbara, what about you? What was one of the most important decisions you've had to make for your company this year?
When you gave me one option, I got a little nervous because there were actually two big decisions. One was how to keep myself, my brother who works with me, and my other coworkers safe from the virus itself. So it was therefore learning about the virus, how it was transferred, and then getting everybody comfortable with what might be ahead for us. And then the second was I pride myself on being there for all my families, but it was really to put myself in their shoes, because so many of them, when reaching out to me that a loved one had passed, were also telling you that they were not with them, they couldn't be with them. And for some it had been a month, for others it had been a few days, that their mom left home for the hospital, and it was just heartbreaking to hear that. So, and it was just to learn to stay compassionate and stay understanding, and try to realize how they were going to interpret what I had to tell them. And the next level was, you could not basically have a funeral. There became a point where it was either direct cremation, direct burial, or direct entombment, which is into a mausoleum. So they were just constantly being hit with a double whammy. So that was, the twofold, those were the decisions for me to make.
Okay. Now, very few businesses, if any, are currently operating as usual, and there's no telling when we'll get back to anything near normal. What does the new normal look like for Hoffman's Funeral Home as well as for 10 Pearl? Barbara, we'll start with you.
Okay. And thanks again for having me. Appreciate it. So one new normal is, for me, as people were saying, with learning new things. I'm not the most technically equipped person, but so now it's live streaming. That's the whole way to go. So even though you're allowed to have, for myself, up to 25 people in the funeral home, at most churches you're allowed to have 50. There are families that still exceed that amount, and therefore you offer the option of live streaming, so that can bring all the other family and friends into it, or the option of Zooming a funeral. Learning to keep up. The new norm is to stay very well prepared with personal protective equipment, new ways to sanitize the funeral home itself, learning from the economy that cremation is going to maintain at the high rate that it was versus people going with more traditional funerals or viewings, burials, things like that, and therefore learning how to grow and keep my business functioning with that.
Great, great. April, what about you? What does the new normal look like for 10 Pearl?
Well, luckily, our occupancy is pretty high for a space. We're just under 250 normal occupancy. So 25% is conducive for a lot of events. We're starting to have families, for example, for baby showers or special parties, even small weddings come back around. And the number of 50, 60, 70 people actually feels really good for clients right now, because also, even if we could have more, it's sort of a safer number. The other good thing, which I'm glad we stuck to our guns when we opened in January, is we kept the space really spacious. Many people nowadays walk into a large space, a 6,500 square foot space like this, and say, you should chop it up and rent little pieces off. And I said, no, we need our big, beautiful, modern, industrial, spacious spaces, right? So I kept it open, and luckily this crazy thing happened of COVID. So now we're starting to have even yoga classes, even dance classes, even, and people are wearing masks. Of course, that's the new normal. But the spaciousness, the open windows, the high ceilings, these are important elements, obviously, if you have that to work with. The new normal also, again, looks like masks, but I think it's very important, especially for other event spaces, other event venues, to show that we can be responsible, because no matter what happens with this virus or viruses in the future or illnesses in the future, wearing masks is actually a tried and true thing around the world. And I feel a lot of pride that we've had events and people have been responsible, and we could show people that we don't have to be all shut down per se when everyone is doing the right thing. And lastly, yes, live streaming is the thing. We used to have more concerts and these types of events. So everything's being live streamed or pre-recorded for a live stream.
Great. Thank you, April. All right, so that pretty much wraps up the questions for the panelists. Now I'd like to turn it over to our audience. Audience, if you'd like, you can feel free to unmute yourselves. And do you have any questions for our panelists?
Hi, it's Michael from the Chamber of Commerce.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
Very well.
Good.
I'm enjoying all of your Zoom meetings, your roundtable discussions. So thank you very much. One of the things the Chamber was able to apply for the county grant because we're a 501c6. A lot of the grants and PPPs were not eligible for us, and that's another show or another table discussion. But being new here and coming from a family-run restaurant, I think one thing that something to learn from this is the mom-pop operations, the small businesses invest in Quicken, office equipment, and a filing system, because you have to pull documentation, have it readily on hand, and process it and scan it in to send it out. And it's funny because when I was listening to reports of who received the PPPs, they were major corporations that had accounting departments that hit a few buttons and voila, they were in. But the small guy, the small mom pops could take them a little bit longer to get organized in regards to having their financials put together. I even had, we spent a day with the retiring director and I pulling all this stuff, trying to find it, and she's organized, but it still took us a while to pull it together. And turning over to an accountant to do it for you, that's an added cost. So I think something to learn from this is being organized with your financials. In regards to marketing, and I agree everything. I mean, I'm old. I'll be 64, you know, and I'm tweetering and I'm Facebooking and I e-blast for the chamber. But today I started out on the road, meeting business owners, trying to recruit new members into the chamber. If you can't do face-to-face, develop your own database of your clients, of your guests in your business, so that you can make phone calls or send text messages or to communicate that way. And I think when these things happen, we get caught short. I don't have a list of my guests. I don't have a list of my clients. So again, I'm looking at the smaller guy, the little corner store type of guy that's trying to survive. These are things that need to be communicated and for them to work on. And that's all I have to say.
Great. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Does anyone else have any questions for our panelists? No. All right. Well, that concludes our roundtable for today. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for taking the time to join us today and share their expertise and valuable advice with our community. Your insights are particularly crucial, especially at a time when so many businesses are still struggling. A thank you for helping us make the roundtable a success.
Thanks, everybody.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.